Hey, welcome everybody to Pro Mindset Podcast. This is your host, Craig Domann. Today I have a Coloradoan that by way of Florida. Her name is Laura Barnes. Laura is an executive performance coach. Laura, thank you for joining Pro Mindset today.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Craig. Great to be here.
Okay, so give yourself an adequate introduction. Your business is leadership beyond sport. You do meta performance executive coaching. Share with everybody that doesn't perhaps understand what that means.
Absolutely. So meta performance coaching, the sort of tagline that we use is to go beyond high performance. And for all the high performers out there, that probably sounds exhausting because you know what it takes to be a high performer already. The idea of doing more than that might sound like, no thanks, I'm not really interested. So what I like to tell people is meta performance really focuses around asking the question, what are you capable of? So it's really about shifting your mindset into a space of limitless possibility and tapping into yourself as your own greatest resource in order to achieve the things that are written on your heart, that are the things that you are passionate about achieving in life. So that is meta performance coaching in a nutshell, is going beyond high performance, asking the question, what am I capable of? And accelerating progress and growth towards your goals and dreams.
Awesome. Okay, so I always have random questions. So my first random question is, what do you find is the most common problem or challenge that people have in performing at a meta level, higher than high? What is the thing that holds them back most frequently?
Yeah, I would say it's a couple of things. You've probably heard this many times, but imposter syndrome tends to come up, right? The who am I to do that? Who am I to achieve that thing or go after that goal? So that's a big one. The other one that comes up pretty often is a little bit of a narrow, I don't want to say a narrow mindset, but sort of like having blinders on, right? Like not seeing just the vast opportunities and potential that are out there. It really is just about tapping into the question, what else is possible? Again, what am I capable of? But people tend to think very linearly in terms of, in order to have X, I have to first do Y, or first do a letter that comes before X. So, that's a big challenge, honestly, working with clients and helping them to realize that there are so many opportunities out there, so many ways to accomplish the goal. It's just about tapping into that and turning on that mode of, how can I accomplish this, as opposed to, can I accomplish this?
Okay, so this last week, you may or may not have seen the Chicago Bears had a big game, and they lost to the Washington Commanders on a Hail Mary play.
I did see that.
Game. Okay, and there's been a lot of attention made to the defensive player for the Bears, who was not focused. He was not locked in. He wasn't even aware that the play had started. And he's a very talented athlete. Obviously, he's a young player that wouldn't be on the field but for the fact that he is an outstanding athlete, and they think he can be a great performer. What do you see happening with people in those situations where, he had a brain fart. He wasn't aware, wasn't locked in. He got caught up in the moment. He was engaging the fans instead of playing the game. What is your perspective on just that situation? So if you were his coach and he calls you up and says, hey, Laura, I really screwed up. He did a press release. He's done an apology to his teammates and to his fans. He's spoken to his team. He's done all these things, but what was going on in his mind space in that moment from your perspective?
Yeah, I don't want to assume to know him or the situation intimately, obviously. I saw it and it was one of those like, oh my gosh moments. But I would say that in that moment, it's very possible that he was coasting, meaning like he thought we already had this in the bag. We're good to go. Let's just enjoy the last, 2 seconds of this game. So it's very possible that he sort of shifted out of performance mode and into it's in the bag. That's a possibility. So if he were my client, one of the things I would say is like, what does it mean? Like, what does it look like for you to play to the buzzer, right? Like that, we talk about it in sports all the time, like playing all the way to the buzzer, and really just getting present to what happened in that moment for him. If it was truly a brain fart, what else was going on? What were some of the things that came to mind, and really kind of digging into that? Because again, if it was more about the showmanship and the showboating and playing to the fans, there could be some beliefs in there. There could be some mindset components of, why that was more important in that moment. But it could be any number of things, right? Like we're all human. We all make mistakes. And I think that's the one thing that I've noticed about athletes over the years is when they make mistakes, we forget that they're human. Like in that moment where they're making a mistake, we get so upset with them for being human. And it's one of those like, who among us hasn't made a mistake, right? Who among us hasn't had an oh no moment at a critical juncture where we look back and go, wow, I owe some major apologies for what I just did. So, beyond the fact that he's simply human and it's a learning experience, again, there could have been any number of things going on, but getting present to what was happening for him in that moment and how he can shift the mindset going forward to make sure I have a feeling he's never going to let it happen again already. But, if there was even deeper work that needed to be done as to why he made the decision he did, whether it was conscious or unconscious, it was a decision. So getting clear on why he made that decision and then how to not make that same decision going forward.
Well, I think that we see athletes, we put them on a pedestal and we see them as superhumans. So we're not forgetting that they're human. We think they're superhuman and we expect them to be like robots and make the play every time because they're making all this money. They've shown they're superhuman because they beat the odds. I mean, just, you can't, nobody can wake up today and go, man, I want to play in the NFL. No, that's not how it works. If you didn't play college football, if you were not one of the, couple hundred people that the NFL drafted, you're probably not going to play in the NFL. So the reality of it is they are human and they do make mistakes just like we do. But I think we have a tendency to put them on pedestals. And so our expectation for their performances are higher.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting when we look at athletes and we expect them to be able to overcome any issue, any challenge, anything that's put in their way. It's, again, unrealistic expectations in some cases. I think that, as much as I love sports, I've loved sports all my life. I've been a fan of sports all my life, was never a great athlete, but I'm a great supporter. And it's always been interesting to me how we idolize and put athletes on pedestals. And then we get surprised when they fall, and a lot of people say like, well, when you're at the top, the only way to go is down. And not that I ever want that to happen to athletes, but it's just an interesting, when we're idolizing someone, we don't expect them to fall. We think like there's no way they could ever be human, right? Like to your point, they are superhuman. But it's an interesting mindset when you look at somebody who is phenomenal at what they do. And it's not just natural talent. They've put in the work, right? Like they have practiced and trained and done the reps and given it their all for a lot of years. So they have earned that spot just as much as it was given to them. So I think it's an interesting lesson, I think, even for fans to be able to understand, like, people are allowed to make mistakes. People are allowed to have those moments. Again, I know he's going to beat himself up for it for a long time, and every athlete does, but there are ways to learn from it and grow from it. And I think that's the important thing.
What is the number one principle in meta performance? Where do you start?
Yeah. So with every client, we start with, what is your vision? What are you trying to accomplish? And not simply what are you trying to accomplish in the sense of, that would be cool, but like, what would be absolutely thrilling? What would take you to a place of being beyond the moon, overjoyed, jumping up and down, excited about your life? And when we dig into that vision, we get really clear on what that's, not just why it's important to you, but also what it's going to create for you. So we really lock into like, what's the impact that's going to have for you, for your family, for your community? What doors is that going to open up for you? Whatever the vision is, it's going to open doors. There are going to be other things that come along as a result of you accomplishing that thing you set your mind to. And what are those things? What doors are going to open as a result? So we really anchor into vision first and foremost, because we call that a generative future. When you're locked into a vision, when you're locked into something that is just so powerful that it literally pulls you forward, that's going to impact the way you show up in your life, the way that you operate, the people you surround yourself with, the chances you take. So vision is first and foremost the number one thing, because it helps us create that generative future. And then beyond that, we focus on a combination of strategy coaching and mindset coaching. So those two, the vision or the strategy and mindset coaching, work in tandem to help a client accomplish their vision.
Okay. So let's go back to vision. Some people call it a dream. There's obviously synonyms for that word. If you are 7 or 8 years old, it might be a dream. If you're 45, it might be a vision because you've got, something that you have a lot more wisdom about what you're trying to accomplish. How do you advise people that have the people that are the closest to them, partners, loved ones, family, friends, best friend, teammates, when they say, this is what I want my vision to be. I want to make it to the pros. I want to make it to the Olympics. I want to do something that's awesome. And their friends are like, man, do you really want to make the sacrifices? Do you really even realize how long shot it is to even put yourself in that situation? How do you help people protect themselves from the people that have the ability and the opportunity to hurt them the most?
That is a great question. And I think it's, again, being anchored into that vision and not just thinking like the, pie in the sky. Oh, wouldn't it be cool if I made it to the NFL? Right. Because I could say I'm going to go to the NFL. We know that's not going to happen, right? At least not as an athlete on the field. But being really anchored into that vision, when you have those naysayers who are like, it's going to take a lot of sacrifice. Are you sure you're up for that? It becomes easier. It's a muscle that we have to work just the same way you go to the gym and you do reps. Mindset is the same thing. So it becomes easier when you're really anchored into that vision to say, you know what? Yeah, it is worth the sacrifice because these are the things that are going to happen as a result of me accomplishing that vision. The life I'm going to be able to create for my family, the impact I'm going to be able to make on my community, the nonprofit I want to start with some of my earnings, right? So being able to have very clearly defined outcomes, impacts, things that are going to be created as a result makes it a lot easier to not silence, but quiet the naysayers. And even working, like when I work with clients, sometimes it's about, hey, what questions do you need to ask or what requests do you need to make of the people around you? And that request might be like, hey, for the next 6 months while I'm training or prepping for the draft or whatever it is, like I need your full support. And if I don't have that, my request is that, we hold off on any negative comments or, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all kind of thing. But giving a client the confidence to have that conversation from a place of love for themselves, love for the person in their life. So sometimes it is about empowering yourself to say, hey, this is what I need in this moment from the people around me, and being willing to make that request no matter the outcome, because it might not always be received as well as they might hope.
So what you're saying there is establish boundaries with those people. Yeah. Okay. So what I find with these elite athletes is that their worst enemy is always themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the stories they're telling themselves. And the bigger the moment, the higher the volume of their inner voice, the negative inner voice, the stories that like you aren't good enough. You don't deserve to be seen. You don't deserve to be heard. Maybe you're not worthy. Maybe someone else should have this opportunity. Something you did or something you said or something that happened to you in the past lead you to believe that you don't deserve it. How do you help people overcome and rewrite the stories that they tell themselves?
It is a process. Like I said, it's putting weight on the bar. It is a constant exercise. So we have a worksheet or a process we take clients through called a racket. It's pretty common in a lot of coaching circles, but a racket is essentially like, what is the chronic complaint? What is the thing you're saying to yourself? So I'm not worthy of this. Maybe that's the complaint or the story that's rolling around in their brain. So we take them through a process where we say like, okay, if that's the complaint that you're hearing, how are you behaving when you're believing that? Right? Like, what are the associated behaviors and beliefs that as an outsider watching you, I might observe, and presencing them to like, oh, when I'm believing that I'm not worthy, I don't play full out, or I'm not as supportive of my teammates. Whatever those behaviors might be, the beliefs might be anything from, again, like I'm not worthy might be a belief, but there could be other beliefs happening in the background as well. So presencing them to that, and then we go through a process of the payoffs and the complaints, because We allow stories to continue playing in the background because there's a payoff. If it wasn't benefiting us, we wouldn't do it. So there's always a benefit and there's always a payoff. That benefit might be, and this is me speaking from personal experience, like, oh, well, if I'm believing that I don't deserve that thing, then I get to keep playing small. I don't have to risk failing because I'm not going to go for something big because I don't believe I'm worthy of it. So when you're present to what the payoffs are and you're like, oh, wow, like that's why I'm continuing to do this. That's not great. And then again, we ask what the costs are. What is it costing you to believe this story, right? If the payoff is I don't take big chances, well, then the cost is knowing myself as that person, knowing myself as the 1% who made it, knowing myself as a leader among my teammates, whatever it might be. So whatever the costs are, and generally when you get present to that, the costs greatly outweigh the payoffs. So when we get clear to that, and then usually a client's like, wow, yeah, that's not worth it, right? Like what it's costing me is not worth the things that it's benefiting me. And so then we invite them into new commitments. What are new commitments you'd like to make now that you're aware of this? And what are some ways that you can start shifting out of that behavior? Some ways that you can catch yourself. Maybe there are people you need to bring in, like a teammate. When they see that you're not playing full out, how can you invite them or ask them to call you out on it and call you up into who you truly want to be? So those are the kind of things that we play with, is again, like helping them understand what the racket is, what that story is that's playing in the background, and how to work through that process and get present to what they truly want as a result.
That sounds cool. What is a common cost that people have that keeps them from pursuing their vision?
Common cost that keeps people from pursuing their vision. It's different for everyone. So I can speak for myself. I mean, some of the costs are, what it's costing me is, again, like it might be costing me knowing myself as that person, right? If I want to be the leader of my organization, the leader of my team, and I don't take big risks, or I don't step up and take that leadership role, and I don't get to know myself as that. Like I don't get to know who I would become and I don't get to know the impact I would have as a result of that. But when it comes to, I think the other, like the payoffs are usually what keep people from going after their dreams. So the payoffs are the benefits, right, that we get from not going after it. And so I'll pause because I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question.
Let's talk about that more. Let's, because I misunderstood you, I want to know what the payoffs are. If the payoffs are hurdles, so what you're telling me then is that in lieu of accomplishing your vision, you get paid off for not accomplishing your vision.
Right.
What are those?
Yeah. So the payoffs of not accomplishing your vision, well, this is a great one. So we talk about survival needs in the coaching space, and your survival needs are to look good, to feel good, to be right, and to be in control. So those survival needs are typically always at play when there's a payoff happening. So for example, if I'm holding back on taking a big risk, right? Like going for it, going pro. The payoff might be that I get to be right about how hard it is to go pro. I get to be right about how people didn't believe in me, and that's why I wasn't successful. So those survival needs really can be the thing that are you get to feel good, right? You get to feel good about being right because our brain loves to be right. Our brain loves to be right more than it loves just about anything else. So being right is a big one. But again, like payoffs could also be anything from, I get to look good because I tried really hard. I maybe didn't try hard enough, but I tried really hard. I tried harder than most people. So I get to look good for trying that hard. Other payoffs might be, again, I don't have to risk failure. If I have a fear of failure, I don't have to risk failing if I don't go for it. So those I would say are kind of the common ones, but those survival needs, again, they pretty much always come into play at some point in terms of a payoff.
So look good, feel good, be right. What you got a couple more?
Be in control. That's the last one.
Be in control. I see that one a lot. Okay.
In yourself or in others?
Both. I have every weakness you described. I think everybody
and we all
does.
do, because Craig, I hate to break it to you, but I'm pretty sure you're human. So
I am too. No, it's the thing that keeps you stuck.
Yeah.
Where you're at.
And the thing that keeps you safe. I mean, you've probably talked about this before with people, but our brain's job is to keep us safe. First and foremost, it is to keep us safe. Like, primarily speaking, that is what our brain is wired to do. So taking a risk could mean danger. So that's first and foremost. Your brain wants you to stay safe because safety means you stay alive. And that's what we want, is to stay alive. Our primal lizard brain, as I like to call it, just hasn't figured out that taking risks, especially calculated risks, is okay. And it can still be safe.
Okay. So pro mindset is about being your best in your biggest moments. And in your biggest moments, it's when the light is shining the brightest. It's when it matters the most. It's at the end of the game and you're taking the shot as the basketball player. You feel comfortable taking the game-winning shot that you might not make. And if you can do it in those big moments, you certainly don't have any problem doing it in the lesser moments. So my question to you is, in this meta performance framework, how do you help people that are awesome all the time until it's really, really important and they struggle in those moments, in those opportunities? How do you help them?
So I'm going to give a little bit of backstory here. I didn't know that I was going to be a coach and an executive coach when I was younger, in like my high school days. But there was a movie that you hopefully are familiar with, For Love of the Game, with Kevin Costner, baseball movie. And the thing that I loved about that was, and this is probably what kind of led me down this path a little bit, one of my early toe dips, I think, or early interests in coaching, when he's standing on the mound and he says, "Clear the mechanism." And it actually shows that process of everything going silent so that you can focus on what you have to do. And I thought that was fascinating. And, that's definitely something that it's absolutely the mental performance side of, coaching and working with athletes, helping them understand how to block out the noise, how to quiet those naysayers, those things that are coming up in the background, the "you suck" comments, "you're not good enough, you don't deserve to be here." So it's about flexing that muscle, getting in the reps, and making sure that you have the confidence, the ability to stand there at that free throw line and say, "You know what? I do have this. I do know what I'm doing. I've done this 1,000 times. I have taken countless shots from this point. Exactly. I know exactly what I'm doing. And this is important. This is what I need to do in this moment," and just locking into who they are in that moment, why it's important to them. And yeah, I really do think it is about getting the reps and getting so comfortable in that space that it becomes sort of like second nature, because the crowd noise doesn't matter. If it's something that just becomes second nature to you, I think that's a big part of it. I don't always focus on that side of the coaching with athletes, but sometimes it's about getting them to tap back into, this is a game and it should be fun. And if you're playing it from the place of this is fun, then things come more naturally. Your natural talent comes through, in addition to all those reps you've taken, all that practice you've put in. So I think those are some elements that we play with and kind of tap into when we're working with athletes.
Okay. So in that scene, Clear the Mechanism, he's able to focus and concentrate and block out all the noise, all the people screaming at him. He totally blocks it out so he can be locked in and dialed into what his job is on that. He's on the mound for the Detroit Lions, or Detroit Tigers, if I'm not mistaken. And he throws a strike or whatever. But the bottom line is, what is a framework that people can use to replicate that, Clear the Mechanism for themselves?
I think it's a little different for everyone, right? So I think part of the process is, what is their individual, again, I come back to motivation a lot. Like, what is your motivation in this space? Working with individuals and helping them to understand, what's happening in that moment. Like, if this is a repeated issue, right, that they get up to that game-winning moment and they choke, for lack of a better term, what's happening, right? Because we have to get present to what's current reality. What's the thought that's going on in the mind? What's happening in that current moment before we can fix it, right? It's like taking your car to a mechanic and saying, "My car's broken," and they, replace a tire when you actually need, new brakes. Not going to solve the problem. So we can't fix the problem until we know what the problem is. And again, like, it comes down to, what are the stories you're telling yourself? What are the thoughts that are going into your head? are you just getting distracted? Are you allowing things to pull your focus? And really digging into like, why are you allowing that to happen, and getting really present to that, because it's really easy to gloss over things and go, I don't know, like I just got distracted. Okay, great. What other areas of your life are you just distracted and miss big moments? And, when you get present to that, like, oh, where else is this happening? And what is the impact on not just you, but the people around you when you get distracted and miss big moments? Right. So just playing in that space of, if this is something that's happening in your athletic performance, it's probably happening in other parts of your life as well. And maybe you're just not present to the actual impact it's having. So it kind of goes back to that racket. It kind of comes back to, again, just like understanding current reality, what's going on. And then it really depends on the individual. So there's not one specific framework that I would say we use, other than just having somebody by your side who can ask those questions and help you really dig into what's going on, why it's happening, and what they want the solution to be. Because some athletes might say, you know what, I actually don't know if I want to continue performing at this level. That's why I keep choking, because I don't think I want this anymore. Whereas another athlete might say, like, I'm afraid of what's going to happen if I truly am the best, right? What happens if I become the best? Then what? So there could be any number of motivations behind that. So unfortunately, there's not one guaranteed framework to fix it for everyone.
Okay, so you talk about vision, strategies, and mindset. Let's talk about strategies. What are some of the common strategies that you have in your toolbox that if somebody wants to get have some positive momentum and positive shift towards achieving their vision, how do you walk them through a variety of different strategies that may work for them?
So you might not like this answer or your audience might not, but it's actually, again, it's individual. It's based on the individual. I tell my clients, I tell everyone I work with, you are an expert in your life. I'm not. It's not my job to come in here. I'm not an athletic coach or a sport coach. It's not my job to come in here and tell you how to throw a faster fastball or how to, throw the perfect spiral. That's not what I'm here for. But you, as an expert in your life, know the steps that you can take that you might not be taking. So when it comes to strategy, it's really about, again, asking those questions and getting clear with the client on what are you trying to accomplish. And usually, again, we dig into the mindset stuff. We help them overcome some of those limiting beliefs, or we start working through that. And then when it comes time for strategy, our strategy lies in commitments. So in the coaching space, we invite people into commitments. And then commitments can be whatever they think is going to move the needle on where they want to go. So if it's an athlete, I'm going to say prepping for the draft, right? Like that could be, okay, what's a commitment that you want to make that's going to help get you closer to being prepared for the combine and therefore the draft, or whatever the process is for them. And so if, like, I don't know their training schedule, but they do. I don't know their nutrition habits, but they do. So if they say, oh, well, I need to talk to my nutritionist and adjust my diet so that I'm, in a better prep space, great. And then commitments are only commitments if the individual puts a by when date. So a due date on that. Okay, by when are you going to talk to your nutritionist? By when are you going to make those changes to your diet? By when are you going to schedule training sessions with the combine prep trainer, right? Or whatever it is for the individual. And so then that builds accountability, commitments, build integrity. And what I've seen with my clients is as they flex that muscle of integrity, as they continue putting weight on the bar, they continue making commitments, following through on those commitments, they gain the confidence to make bigger commitments, to stretch themselves even further. And that is when you see really just market improvement in terms of the pace of progress and the amount of progress they're making overall.
No, I like that. So it really doesn't matter what they do. It's a series of small commitments with deadlines so that they can move the chain, so to speak, and make progress, which reinforces them that, hey, this is working, and they're going to be more motivated to continue. They may make bigger commitments or different commitments or new commitments, and they can do the same thing, and they're living in integrity by doing that.
Yeah. And we even talk about, we have a concept called the intuitive fence, which the intuitive fence is essentially the self-imposed limits that we put on ourselves in terms of what we think we're capable of. So we ask our clients to take a step outside the intuitive fence, right? So if you make a commitment that is simply like, Oh, I need to work out 5 days a week. Well, how many days a week are you currently working out? 4. Okay, does 5 days a week seem like it is inside the intuitive fence, meaning it's very doable, very attainable, or does it seem like it's outside the intuitive fence? Like, I don't know how I'm going to accomplish that. That seems intense. Like, it seems like a lot. So we even ask our clients, like, yes, we want you to break your vision down into smaller goals. However, we still want you to be taking big action and big swings towards that goal, because as you're taking those bigger swings, that's where you're going to build the confidence, right? Like, that's the putting weight on the bar concept of trying things that seem uncomfortable or outside your intuitive fence, that you start realizing, like, oh, I actually was capable of doing that big thing that seems so daunting. It really wasn't that big. It wasn't that terrifying. It was just, I needed to get out of my own way and take the next step.
This may be a silly question, but it just popped in my head, so I'm going to ask it. What's the most common self-limiting belief that we as humans have about our future, our performance, our accomplishing our vision, things of that nature?
Oh, goodness. I think you touched on it earlier, talking about, like, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve that. Who am I to have that? I think it really depends on the individual. I think it depends on their background, their story, their history. I think sometimes it can just be fear, fear of failure, fear of looking like a fool if you try it, fear of success, right? Like, if I have this thing, then, oh my gosh, if I make $10 million next year, I don't know how to manage $10 million. Like, I'm terrified of the idea of succeeding in that space, right? So it could be any number of things. I wouldn't say there's one, like, guaranteed fear, but typically I would say the fear of failure is one of the more common limiting beliefs that people have.
Okay. Let's talk about you for a second. What has been the biggest improvement for you in your life since you started coaching people on meta performance? How has that revealed itself in your own life and your own career?
Yeah, so I've always been the kind of person who bets on myself. I know myself to be capable and resilient. So betting on myself is kind of the through line of my life, which I think is awesome and a point of pride for sure. But since meta performance, when I was going through the certification and I was getting coached by people who are exceptional coaches in this space, it was really just the stretch commitments that I was making to myself, right? Like, the commitments to have more conversations than I thought I could possibly fit into a week. Well, I'm going to do that because I know that those conversations are going to get me closer to my goal. The more people who know me, who know what I'm working on, and who know what I'm passionate about, the more likely I am to have the opportunities to do that work. So just up-leveling my own integrity, my own commitment to a goal, I would say has been substantial. The goal of leaving my full-time job and going full-time in coaching, that was something that I was like, oh yeah, that'll happen in a year. It'll happen, a little ways down the road, not right away. And then when I had a situation where my full-time job no longer was an option, technically, being very honest and blunt, I got laid off from my role. And I was like, wow, I did not see that coming. And the moment I found out, I went, okay, I got this. Because I was so locked in on what I wanted to create as a coach that it actually didn't faze me that much that I was leaving that full-time job. Because again, just being anchored into my vision was to have a full-time coaching business. We just accelerated the timeline. And so having that mindset of this was what was going to happen all along, it just happened sooner than I expected. It allowed me to stay grounded, stay focused, and not feel completely frazzled the way that a lot of people do when something like losing a job happens. So I would say that those are some of the bigger changes that have happened for me since starting with meta performance.
Okay. Everybody talks about, how you start your day can really be a huge indicator on how much you accomplish during the day and what you spend your time on, what you think about, how you prioritize, things of that nature. What is your morning routine, and what is the morning routine you coach people in meta performance to have so they can maximize their headspace, get closer to their vision? You can have great strategies. I'm really good at this. I've got great strategies. You just don't use them all the time. So that's another issue, right? So it's like, what is your morning a routine recommendation so that people can step into these stretch commitments, this headspace that you're talking about, so that they can accomplish more?
Yeah. So I am one of those very interesting people. My morning routine is probably needs to be refined a little bit more. I have always been an early riser, but not really a morning person. So I wake up early. That doesn't mean I actually want to be productive or start doing things right away. So my morning routine actually tends to be a little bit more relaxed. However, throughout the day, it's coffee, it's my however I choose to start the morning. But I would actually say that what's more impactful for me, because I'm a little bit more of a night owl, is my evening routine. At the end of my day, I make sure that I have time blocked out Monday through Friday every day, Monday through Friday every week, for an hour that I follow up on everything that was a commitment I made in that day. So if I had a call with somebody and I committed to sending something to them, right? Like, it's how I wrap up my day so that I am complete for today. And then looking ahead to tomorrow, what do I need to focus on tomorrow? Is tomorrow a meeting heavy day? Is it more of a focused productivity kind of day? So for me, my evening routine has actually been a lot more impactful than my morning routine because, like I said, I am just not like, I like my 10 a.m. workouts. I like to kind of ease into my day whenever I can, but I definitely do set aside time in the mornings to presence myself to what's happening in the day, to check in on commitments I've made to my coaches, commitments I've made to people outside of the coaching space. So checking in on those commitments, making sure that I have everything in place to meet those commitments if it needs to happen today versus, later in the week. So it really is just, again, being present. I do also try, again, I need to refine this for myself as well, but, reviewing my vision and just using that as an anchor point to say, okay, this is what I'm working on. This is what today's work is going to help me accomplish long term. So I would say that it's a combination. I'm not as anchored into a morning routine as I probably could be or should be, but I do feel that my evening routine setting me up for the next day has been really impactful in the last couple of years.
Awesome. What else would you like to share about meta performance that perhaps I didn't ask you that you are dying to tell the audience that this program that you do, maybe somebody will reach out to you. What is the thing that I didn't ask you that would help people?
Yeah, so I think the big piece with meta performance is, again, just remembering that you are your own greatest resource and you are capable of far more than you're currently experiencing, but that doesn't mean that it has to happen with agony and strife and just grueling, awful hard work. It can happen in an environment that is fun and powerful and empowering. So you're capable of far more than you're currently experiencing. And I would even say that the people around you, whether it's your relationships, the team that you're serving on, the team that you work with, if you're not an athlete and you have a normal job, the team around you is probably capable of far more than they're currently experiencing now as well. And so meta performance and tapping into that space of what am I capable of, becoming your own greatest resource, can really be a powerful way to move the needle towards those big, hairy, audacious goals that we set for ourselves every once in a while.
Okay. Laura, do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, Craig, what's next for you? What is on your radar? What are some of the big things that you're focusing on in the next 6 to 12 months?
I'm working on more speaking opportunities to share my pro mindset message so that people can be their best in their biggest moments. They can rewrite their stories that they tell themselves. They can elevate their standards because their old standards are going to get them to where they want to go, and help them teach them how to create a performance bubble. So when they are on the mound, they're at the free throw line, they're in the boardroom, they're in the locker room, they're in a Zoom call, doesn't matter where it's at. They can really get in the flow because they are protecting themselves from distractions, past failures, their pocket voice that tells them all the things that are wrong with them. The last time they were in that situation, embarrassed, all this stuff. Call it noise, call it what you want. My goal is to help people find that happy place where they can truly be who God created them to be in the moment that they wanted to be in. So that's my vision.
Awesome. And how many people would you like to impact through speaking in the next year?
I don't have a specific number like, 10,000 or, 825 or whatever it might be, but it's really impact the people that are looking for they're looking to be their best version of them when they perhaps in the past haven't been. So I don't want to set limits on the number, but it doesn't matter if it's an athlete, an entrepreneur, a business person, it could be a mom or a dad or a parent. It's helping people really realize their potential by showing up the way everybody has an idea how they want to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a job interview. And a lot of times people, they, in sports, it's called my bad. You come off the field, sidelines, you go, my bad. Well, what does that mean? You didn't do what you were capable of doing that was perhaps your assignment to do.
Right.
And what do you say? My bad. So pro mindset helps you eliminate my bads because you actually do what you were assigned to do, whatever your job was.
Yeah. Similar. I mean, that's the integrity piece, right? Like integrity has nothing to do with morality. It doesn't make you a good person or a bad person, but doing what you said you were going to do by when you said you were going to do it. And so it's interesting to hear you say it in that space as well, to eliminate the my bads by up-leveling your integrity. What does that look like, right?
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you today for joining us on Pro Mindset. I want to wish you nothing but the best of luck in your coaching ventures. And I would like for you to share with our audience where they can find you, if they want you to speak, if they want to explore your coaching, do a discovery call or anything like that. How can these people check you out?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website is leadershipbeyondsport.com and email is laura@leadershipbeyondsport.com. I'm also on Instagram and most often on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn and Instagram are my two primary social media sites. But other than that, web and Leadership Beyond Sport for that. And then Instagram, Leadership Beyond Sport for Instagram, and then Laura J. Barnes on LinkedIn. So just search Laura Barnes. I'm sure to come up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Thank you again for joining us today. Hey, everybody go out and have a meta performance day. Go be the best you can be. Be the person that you've dreamed about being. Dial in and connect to your vision. Execute those strategies you need to execute and have the mindset you need to have to accomplish what you set out to accomplish. So thank you again for joining Pro Mindset. I want to really quickly mention my book, Pro Mindset. You can check it out on Amazon or craigdomann.com. Get your copy. Give me some feedback on what you think. Have a great day.
Hey, it's Craig Domann, the host of Pro Mindset Podcast. I want to thank you for listening or watching today's show. And you can catch us every week on the normal social media platforms like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all the listening podcast platforms. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and more importantly, I hope you gained a pro mindset insight. Please be sure to rate and review Pro Mindset Podcast, and I look forward to catching up with you on our next show.